What's up, everybody? This is your host, CJ Johnson, and welcome to a brand new episode of Stay Fresh, brought to you by Fresh Clean Teas. This is an amazing roundtable. I'm joined by some successful gentlemen of Southern California. And the last time that we had this roundtable, it was really dope. We had a really awesome discussion, got a lot of comments, got a lot of questions. And now I am joined by a brand new crop of awesome people. And we're going to really deep dive into some things and really address some topics that you guys were talking about before and asking about. So I'd love for you guys to introduce yourselves to the world, and we're going to start with you.
Well, hi, I'm Kyle. I'm a fashion photographer based in Los Angeles.
Hey guys, I'm Matthew. I am the co-founder of Fresh Clean Teas.
I'm Yoshino, and I am the co-founder of No Wave and Ars Decoded.
Awesome. So as you can see, I'm joined by some very successful guys that know how to run shit. So first question, guys. 2020 was a very chaotic, crazy year for everyone. I've heard a lot of talk of like lessons learned. I didn't get a chance to do what I wanted to do, and in retrospect, maybe that was a good thing. All of you are successful entrepreneurs and creatives, and I'm just very curious, what would you say was the biggest lesson, the number one lesson moving into the next year that you feel like you're taking with you and that you would love to share with somebody, like a nice little pro tip of what you learned this year moving forward? What about you? Start with you.
Sure. Pro tip. I mean, I think a lot of the times, at least recently, I've been thinking a lot about just accepting a lot of things, and maybe it's like a Taoist philosophy and Taoist principle, but I think in our Western point of view, a lot of the times, it's about striving for something or productivity, and those sort of things are like ingrained into this, into the experience of living in Western society. But I think I guess I just really align with like Taoist principles, but being able to accept the moment and also being in control of yourself, although there's all these chaotic things going on.
Right.
In the periphery.
Yeah, I think we talk a lot about this whole methodology of like being an unstoppable juggernaut. No matter what's happening, we're always moving forward, not letting outside influences disrupt us. And I think for me, like a big lesson was like releasing the ego, like really stepping into any sort of decision I make. I always ask myself this: is this serving my purpose? Or is this serving my ego? And that was really coming to the front lines in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like a really solid way to look at it as well. Like, one of the things that I've done or that we've done at Fresh Clean Teas is really, understanding that you need to be flexible,
right,
and versatile, right? And so like you might have had 800 things planned for you were going to do X, Y, and Z, and then you realize, okay, all of that's off the table right now, but we still have a job to accomplish or kind of a brand to grow in our case, and how can we be versatile and flexible, and kind of pairing that concept with a little bit of what you were saying is just, I've been kind of going with the idea of like, give yourself some grace, right? Because everything is so difficult, and I think every challenge feels like almost daunting right now in 2020. Even like going outside to like pick up a package feels like you're walking through a battle zone right now, especially like when in the beginning of the year, and just kind of realizing that everything's not always going to go the way you want it to go, and that's okay. And I think that's really important to kind of take through.
I couldn't agree more with that.
Just to kind of go off of that same idea of like keep going, keep moving, and that pivot, I feel like I learned that something can always be made. Like no matter what ingredients you currently have, like there's still a dish to be made out of that. Kind of like I have some family and stuff in the South, and like the heritage of like the whole concept of gumbo. Like
Yeah.
literally using whatever you have, whether it's scraps or the best ingredients, but just making something out of it.
Oh wow,
Yeah, keep
I
it
love
all-
that.
Yeah, that's
analogy.
really cool.
Yeah, I love gumbo, and it's also very delicious. And yeah, okay, I have to address this because this is kind of like a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. But like all year, people have been talking about how disruptive remote work and doing things on their own has been, and then there's the people that have already been doing that, and all of you kind of fall into that. Like we're all entrepreneurs. We all run our own businesses. And I'm just really curious, like, because remember before this, everybody was like, I wish that I could run my own business. I wish that I could do things on my own time. And you see so many people stressed out about it. What would you say is a lesson that you learned even in hearing that? Now that you're seeing like, oh, wow, you got a chance to do things on your own. And, you know, I've been doing this for such a long time. You know, what is your response to that?
I mean, I think before we had Fresh Lean Teas, like I've worked from home really for like the last 15 years. So
Wow.
that concept of like having a workplace within your home, I think has been more comfortable for me than it is for a lot of people.
Right.
And I've gotten, you know, talked to a lot of people like, how do you structure this? And I think that the key really, as I've always had, is don't have your workplace be in your play place,
Right,
Which
exactly.
is like, which can be really
Yes.
difficult. But you know, I
Yes.
talk to people and they're like, oh, I sit on my bed and I'm on my laptop and I'm working, and like that doesn't work for me.
No.
It might work for others, but I need to have a place that is, this is where I work. This is kind of the spot where I can kind of focus
Yeah.
and get things done. And then when that's over, I kind of can shut the laptop off,
Yeah.
move away from that space, and still have a moment to breathe throughout the course
I
of the
think
day.
you saying that is such an interesting hack for me too, because I feel like when you create your own space, like that, like creating your space is so undervalued because you make a space where you feel empowered and it's kind of easy on you. It's really easy to navigate through these like batches of bad days and like bad thoughts. And to your point, it's like, why would you want to work in the area of where you're supposed to rest?
Yeah.
Because you're tricking your brain into like always staying on.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that there's like a lot of different things that you can do to essentially like trick your brain or like train your brain into like doing things. So something that I personally like to do is like every morning I generally wake up between like 4 or 5, and then I'll, you know, do some emails and just drink coffee and then just kind of relax. And then when 7 o'clock comes and I go do the workout. And then there's certain things that I personally like to do like on a daily basis to allow me to get in that certain state of flow. And then also breaking work into different chunks during the day. But also like what you were saying is about staying flexible too, and being flexible. Because I mean, I was watching this this interview with Bill Murray actually the other day with Charlie Rose.
Okay.
And he was talking about essentially just being present and being open to the possibility of something new to come up.
Right.
You know, and
Oh,
then that's kind
yeah,
of what
yeah.
where the spice of life is.
I couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah.
What about you? Would you have any like cool tips?
I was just gonna tack on to that. That reminds me of a quote from Chris Voss, the negotiator, FBI, former FBI
Yeah.
negotiator. He always says like, never be so sure of what you want that you pass up on something better.
Ooh.
Like you have to like be open enough to like see these opportunities to pivot to
Right.
like make something different. So I definitely
That's
agree
interesting.
with that.
So let me ask you this: would you say that that the year of 2020 was an opportunity for you, or do you feel like it was a blip on the radar?
I don't think too many people would say it's a blip on the radar. It's definitely been a significant point, but it kind of looks different to a lot of people. I think for some people who are
What about
able-
you?
For me, I feel like it really accelerated a lot of the plans that I wanted to do because I kind of saw it as an opportunity that the rest of society was on pause, so I can like do the inner work. I can work on my writing projects. I can work on filmmaking things as well as photography. I felt like I just got more time.
We had such a unique year this year. I think, you know, the Fresh Lean Teas, we've been growing like steadily. We turned 5 this year.
Nice.
And so
Congratulations.
at the beginning of the year, I think you're just kind of going along with the motions. And then with COVID hitting, is the first time as a business owner that you think like, how is this going to impact our business? And I think right away you're kind of very naive to the idea of what a global pandemic is and what it means. And you think, like, okay, we'll be locked down for a couple weeks. And then you start thinking like, okay, supply chain and marketing, all of these things are kind of going haywire. And it turned out for us that I think it really worked to our benefit, which is hard for me to reconcile in a lot of ways because I don't like the idea that we've had like a great year on the backs of so many people that have been struggling. But I think that it is, you know, to your point, you have to really kind of keep an open mind and understand, like, roll with the punches. I don't think it's going to be a blip on the radar for me or for a lot of people. I think we're going to look back at 2020 as like a kind of a shift in overall, like, you know, our culture is going to shift based off of what has happened this year. And I think that now, like, we're just seeing the start of that throughout, you know, not only through our business, but through our personal lives and really through like the world around us.
I couldn't agree more with that. What do you think? Opportunity or blip on the radar? Be honest, don't lie.
I mean, you know, I think a lot of times I just think of things in terms of what's the term? It escapes me right now. But essentially, like, I mean, it goes back to the whole training thing. It's like being able, like you were saying, to roll with the punches. But also, I think, like, if you're constantly doing that mental work, then, and you're creating all of, whether it's like, you know, business, it's you're creating different revenue streams and those sort of things, and being open, like we're all talking about. But also, like, it's that mental, you know, living can kind of be like attrition, you know, like a battle of attrition, right? So I think, like, the more that you work on yourself and the more that you're honest with yourself and the more emotionally intelligent you become and the more empathetic you become in the process, then you can just allow these moments to kind of wash over you, but also have your grieving period as well. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. So for you, you see opportunities from the blip, but it's a little bit of a blip for you.
I think for me, like, I mean, you know, my background is like fighting and stuff like that.
Okay.
You know, right? So
Yes.
you know me.
Yeah.
So
You're a warrior through and through.
So I think, like, you know, being able to go through those, you know, sparring sessions and then going through like a lot of hard things throughout your life, you can either look at those things as negative or positive things, right? So the more that you just change your perspective and cognitively reframe certain situations, you can actually see what was negative or the way that someone treated you as what you would think is negative as a positive thing. And just like this, I mean, now, you know, maybe we're all having our grieving period, but later on, you know, you'll be like, oh wow, that was actually really transformative, and I was able to have a lot of contemplative work and be able to think a lot and all those things. So I don't know, it's just a moment, you know? So I try to be as present as possible.
I think that what we're seeing, like, kind of to what you were saying, I think that people are developing quite a bit more empathy for one another. It might be kind of on a micro level, kind of within like communities, because, you know, we're also in like the midst of like a completely polarized sort of like like political time in our country and in the world, really. But what I see is just like on a day-to-day basis, you know, my neighbors, I'm interacting more with them, and I feel like there's this level of like connection now that we might not have had, you know, before this, because we are all going through something together, even though it's in very, very different ways. We're all kind of going through this very, very challenging time together, and so I think it's opening up a bit of empathy, like within like that micro community level.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. And one of the things that's kind of interesting, just hearing you guys talk, it sounds like there's a lot of like wisdom there from each of you, and I'm just very curious. You know, what do you attribute that to? What do you feel like was like a life lesson that was very transformative for you to get you to this point? I know that for me, to tip it off, I think acceptance in a lot of ways, and like what you were talking about with growth and going through these challenges and saying to myself like, okay, this happened, and am I going to run away or be scared or be a victim? Or am I going to be better than what I was before and learn the lesson that I was supposed to learn, apply that to my lifestyle, and live the best life that I want for myself and for my community?
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Well, I want to steal that answer. Like, that was great.
Yeah.
I don't see it like, at least personally, I don't have like one moment or something that has kind of shaped my thinking or the ability to feel like that I have some level of wisdom. I think that it's just kind of slowly matriculated over time of being kind of like young and stupid and making a ton of mistakes. And then also, you know, kind of dealing with whatever comes your way, right? Like, so we talked about all like the difficulties and, you know, the business aspect, but then there's always like a personal, like things behind the scenes. And so this year, like, I've kind of gone through the highs and the lows. Like the birth of my son, Frank, 6 months ago, which was like really, really like the best moment I could imagine. But it was paired with the loss of my father-in-law, who I was like extremely close with, who unfortunately never got a chance to meet my son. And so those two, I think, will just continue to kind of provide a framework for the way that I'm evolving and the way that I like see the world and see my relationships with other people.
Oh, wow.
And I think that like those relationships translate into relationship with new people as well, right? Like you think you treat people differently as your experience is shaped and changed over time. You have a new appreciation for even like, you know, fleeting moments where, you know, you might run into someone, have a 5-minute conversation, and it can be very, very impactful over the course of your life. You might not ever see that person again. And so I think each of these moments kind of pile on to create a layer of wisdom.
Wow, that's some pretty powerful stuff. And one of the things that's really interesting about your journey is that, you know, all of us here as entrepreneurs, we talk a lot about relationships and dating and how difficult that is, because, you know, we're always on the go. Sometimes we work long hours, sometimes we don't. There's like a lot of freedom in what we do, but there's also a lot of like, I have to do these things because if I don't do these things, nobody else is going to do them.
Right.
And your co-founder is your wife.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you made it work.
We make it work every
So
day.
you got to throw some pro tips for all of you out there, for us. What's going on?
Well, we get this question a lot, which is, and I think that the biggest thing, you know, I've heard people say, how do you work with your spouse? And the reality of it is like we have been a team like really since day one. We formed a very close bond like very, very early on when we were dating, and it was very clear to me that Melissa, you know, was my partner in life. And I think that when you find that, like, I think some couples, it doesn't make sense. Like everyone, like people want to have their own kind of path to go down. And I don't think we came into like building Fresh Clean Teas thinking this was going to be the be all and end all. We created this as kind of a hobby project to have a little bit of fun working together. And so we're a team outside of our business, and that translates to us being a team within the business. Right. And I think that, you know, very rarely do people see us have friction like within the work environment, and it's because we don't have a lot of friction outside of the work environment.
Oh wow, you don't.
And so I don't know whether I'm very, very happy. Melissa, I love you. We just have we are like a very like perfect yin and yang.
Would you say that is due to good communication? I mean, I understand the partnership element of it, because it sounds like both of you are always on the same page. And that's just like, it was a nice little perfect mix.
It really reminds me, there's this African proverb that says, if there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can do no harm. And so like that works on so many levels.
Okay.
Like that works. That works.
And then we go to the next level.
In the relationship level,
good.
like if there's no beef between you guys, it doesn't even matter what's out there, like how difficult a client is or like whatever, like you guys are solid. And it works on like the individual level.
Right.
I moved out here from the Midwest to LA, and like I don't have a lot of close friends here, but I'm like slowly growing my network. But like on the individual level, the more I work on my mental health and like just keeping myself good, like opportunities are going to be there and I can like grab them. And like
self-love.
And even on a societal level, like as America like gets their stuff in order and stuff, like we're gonna knock this pandemic out. Like like if a unified thing like has no trouble inside, like whatever the obstacle, like doesn't even matter.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because like we talk about this all the time.
Totally.
Yeah. How do you feel about that now?
In terms of if you work on the inside, then
Well, even just like with relationships, because we always talk about how hard it is with our lifestyles.
We don't talk about that. This guy be having conversations by himself.
True, everyone. True. Also true.
No, yeah, of course. I mean, we talk about that stuff a lot. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, like trying to find a partner and stuff. And I mean, I probably have more questions for you. But
ask him. He's right here.
Yeah. Oh, I mean,
what's the first thing that popped in your mind?
The first thing that popped in my mind is, did it just feel right? And were you just having like tons of conversations and it just like flew by like that?
The relationship or the business?
No, in terms of the relationship in the beginning.
It really just felt right. Like I worked a job where I traveled a lot. So I was traveling before we started Fresh Lean Teas. I was working where I would fly to Lithuania like once a quarter, basically, for like 2-3 weeks at a time. And I lived in Las Vegas. It's not the easiest place to meet people in Vegas unless you're just out in the party scene all the time, which was not kind of why I was there. I was working. And so when I finally got into like the framework where I was like, I'm ready to like date, I was still traveling so much. So a lot of our relationship was built off of the idea that we were communicating through like Skype and email, like kind of the way that we're all communicating right now. So it was very much more on a, we had to really get to know each other through conversations before we actually met. And so I was on one of my trips for like 3 weeks and we started Skyping and Skyping essentially like every day, to the point where when I did fly home, we had planned on going on our first like actual date like a day or two after I'd gotten home, because I flying from Lithuania just 20 something hours.
Wow.
So I had gotten home, and I got home and I was just really excited to like finally meet Melissa. So I was like, hey, like let's just not wait till tomorrow. Let's just like, hang out. And I just think that there was just a connection, like a very, very easy going sort of, I've known this person for like far longer than
we've actually known
actual time.
I think that something that's very interesting is that when I hear you say that, and I hear that you were understanding more about yourself, and then there was a process, and you trusted that process. You weren't trying to rush into anything. You were doing what felt natural. So you even asking like, did it feel right? It seems like it was because it wasn't forced. Yeah. It seems like it was very much like, I'd like to get to know you, and then when it felt right, I'd like to get to know you more.
And I think the funny thing about that is like, I was in a mind space too where I was probably like trying to take my foot off the gas a little bit. You know what I mean?
Like.
And
you said you weren't trying to party.
No, and so Melissa and I, like she'll probably laugh at this, because I was like, I probably wasn't as nice like a few moments, just because I would say like, okay, this is moving too quickly because I'm getting too comfortable, right? And I think a lot of guys kind of like have that happen, and then all of a sudden it just got, like kind of clicked, and I was like, this is stupid. Like,
interesting.
Let me just like stop thinking about why this shouldn't shouldn't work, but why I should slow it down and just kind of embrace what's actually happening.
Something else.
Well, you touched on something that I think is very important to talk about, just because I have you guys here. When we talk about being a man and being vulnerable, I mean, I think that applies to everyone. I think that there's just this sort of weird space that we're in right now where everybody's afraid of being vulnerable, and we have all of these opportunities to ignore each other. So if it does get a little bit tough, or we feel too vulnerable, or we feel like we can be hurt, we say to ourselves, not all of us, but some of us say to ourselves like, no thanks. And then we keep seeing a perfectly crafted vision of things on social media that really tells us subconsciously like, it's supposed to look like this. So I'm curious, real quick, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think that just, going back to Western culture and everything, there's, especially in American culture, I mean, you grew up watching certain films and there's a whole process of romanticization. So even early on, when you're a kid, people are kind of telling you like, what do you want to do when you grow up, right? And then so that's where also like the romanticization starts like seeping in further. So, I mean, I think it's good to be able to be honest with ourselves and understand like what is truly us, what is a secondhand value that's been given to us, whether it's religiosity or whether it's whatever it may be, something your parents tell you, and then really understand what that narrative is for yourself. And then by understanding that narrative, then you can embrace yourself, which by embracing yourself, you can seek out someone else, or maybe they just randomly just fall into your life somehow, right?
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It's an interesting, like, complex kind of like structure.
Right.
I mean,
yeah. And then also because we this is for Fresh Clean Tees, and when we put on this gear, it fits so well, and you have like so much knowledge of like what people are looking for. Like, what would you say is? I think we were talking about this earlier. What's like the best seller? Like, what do when men say I want to get something?
Yeah.
What do they typically want to get?
Black crew neck T-shirt.
Black crew neck T-shirts.
like hands down,
Right.
It is our best seller. I mean, I think that,
Or why do you think that is?
I think it's just, I think it's a level of comfort that a lot of guys have, where it's that sort of like, I don't need to think about what I'm putting on. Like, I know that a black T-shirt looks good, so that I can kind of walk out the door and feel, my best, right? You're not like thinking like, is someone gonna like question what I'm wearing? There's like very little. There's no question marks about it. It is what it is, and it allows you to be who you are, versus like trying to wear something that might not necessarily like fit the way that you're feeling, or your vibe, and then there's also like on a more like fashion forward level, like there's so much you can do with a black T-shirt. You can kind of like
it goes with
layer it
everything
underneath, or wear a suit jacket. So I think that it's funny too that it has become the bestseller, because it's really like the shirt that really prompted us to start the business, because I was always trying to find like the perfect black T-shirt, and I was like purchasing them from all sorts of different places, and we were like, if we can find a really great black T-shirt, we can find the perfect black T-shirt.
Well, and I think that's even with adding on to the T-shirt element of things, when we talk about colors and schemes, I always advise like other people that make sure that you dress in ways that make you feel comfortable and empowered. Like, really makes you feel confident and sexy. And I think for a lot of men, neutral colors usually works really well because of what you just said: white, grays, blacks. And yeah, I'm kind of curious. Like, what about you? How do you feel about that?
about feeling sexy.
Yeah. Yes, obviously.
I don't know, man. I kind of subscribe. I kind of subscribe to that Einstein method. He has 7 of the same outfits in the closet.
The whole Steve Jobs sort of situation with the black turtlenecks.
Yeah, I mean, I just wear black generally. Generally. But I mean, this is great. Feels great.
and then you were saying, and then you're talking about colors popping with, and that's why you're obviously wearing that.
Yeah, I found myself liking mostly black and gray, and then every now and then just getting a muted color, like a burgundy or a navy. And so when I have when I know my palette, then I don't even have to think about the outfit. Just like you guys are saying, I can just pick pieces, and I know everything goes together because I only got 3 colors in my closet. So
awesome,
it's pretty easy.
All right, well, you know what? Listen, thank you guys so much for joining me on this new roundtable, this awesome conversation, guys. We're going to wrap this up. But one of the things that I really would love to highlight here is we talked a lot about making sure to stay the course, making sure to be able to adapt, be open-minded, see things as opportunities, communicate well, go with the flow, and some last thoughts. I'd love for you guys to share some last thoughts with everybody before we kick this off.
Okay, I'll let
you go first, because you're quoting African proverbs and shit.
when he was talking about, oh my gosh, with that setup, like when he was talking about kind of like learning your masculinity through Hollywood and stuff like that, like, I don't know, everybody comes from a man and a woman, so like embrace all of yourself. Like if you want to wear some colors, wear colors. If you want to wear all black, wear that, but definitely just wear what you feel most comfortable in. Like know thyself is a huge quote. I kind of keep in the back of my mind. So
yeah, you're full of quotes.
I am.
Jesus.
Yeah.
What about you?
I know. I have no proverbs really. As I'll kind of like take our business ethos that we take through a lot, and I think it really relates very well to kind of your day-to-day life. It's like we take a very, very like focused approach of like, okay, we know who we are, and we try to stay within that kind of those guide rails, so to speak. Like it's okay to float outside of those guide rails if you're comfortable doing that, right. but also realizing that, you know, if you are trying to go down a specific path, whether it's personally or professionally, or you know what you're really, really good at, like, and focus on it. And if you can just kind of stay focused, you can see, like, you'll make just such amazing like leaps and bounds by just kind of staying in your lane. And I think that's really, really kind of a nice way to kind of move forward.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, something parlaying off of what you just said, something that I've been thinking about a lot is that if you can just show up every day and get 1% better at some specific thing. So for instance, like with boxing, it's like, you know, I teach my students to get 1% better at the jab, or 1% better at throwing that cross, or, you know, those sort of things. But that can be also put into many other things regarding life. And to give a little proverb, something that always sticks with me is, as a snake sheds its skin, we should shed our past over and over again. And that's something that I've been thinking about a lot. Yeah.
Awesome.
So,
Love that. I mean, what else do you want from me? I have nothing else to say. We got proverbs, we got all the sage wisdom around here. I mean, you're welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody, to another episode of Stay Fresh, brought to you by Fresh Clean Teas. I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.